Everybody can understand me? No. Oh, yeah. Good question. Now it should be better. Yeah. OK. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my talk, Practice Makes Perfect when it comes to RxJS. And today I'm going to teach you how to get into RxJS flawlessly. Before we get started with that, maybe you remember when you were a child, you tried the first time riding a bicycle, and you kind of failed very hard. So the first time I tried it, I landed in the garden of my neighbors, and my mom was totally concerned. Oh, this little boy hurt himself. No. But stuff like that happened quite often, the first time you tried to ride a bicycle. But remember, when you did it, you get up, maybe put some dirt off, and get back to the bike, right? And after a while, you keep practicing, doing that stuff again, maybe fall off the bike again. But at some point of time, you became quite good at riding a bicycle. So it's quite similar when it comes to RxJS, because you need to get in some kind of cycle where you keep practicing, and every time you understand a little bit more, and keep doing that to master RxJS at some point of time. Before we deep dive into that topic, let me shortly introduce myself. So my name is Jan-Niklas Wortmann. I'm living in Germany. I'm a software developer for a power supplier called E.ON, which is European-wide organizing. I'm core team member of RxJS since mid of last year, I think. I'm mainly working on the docs website, so if there's any issue on that, or you could understand parts better by improving them, please let me know. Additionally, also on my stickers on my laptop, you see I'm mostly working with Angular, so I'm also organizing the Angular meetup in my hometown. And if you don't want to talk with me about RxJS, feel free to talk to me about steaks and whiskey. I love talking about that. I can talk for ages about that. So back to the topic. The first time you work with RxJS, maybe you're working with Angular, therefore no RxJS. But the first time you try it, it's super complicated, right? So there are super many terms you might not know at the very beginning. There are new concepts, everything is super weird. It feels weird working with RxJS in the beginning. But the problem is that, let me put it in other words, because once a very wise man came to me and said, observables don't cause problems. Establishing a reactive mindset does, because RxJS is just the state-of-the-art implementation for JavaScript to establishing reactive programming with JavaScript. So the main problems people have, is my theory, isn't about the observable pattern itself, because the observable pattern is quite easy. But establishing the reactive mindset and being productive with RxJS, therefore, that's the main challenge we have to overcome. So let me make another comparison. So maybe some of you have already learned a foreign language. In my case, the first foreign language I learned was English. And if I compare it to German, for example, there are some words which are kind of similar. So in German, we have the word hallo, which is totally the same than hello in English. It already sounds quite similar, so I think most of the people would at least understand what I try to say when I say hallo to them. We have different terms which are similar. So for example, banane and banana, the pronunciation is a little bit different, but the spelling is super similar. And additionally, there are words in German and English which are totally the same, like code and kindergarten. It's mainly due to some historical reasons that it's like it is, but still, the words are completely the same. The spelling is the same and the meaning is the same. There are also words in German which, if you translate them directly, doesn't even make any kind of sense. So in German, we have the term Ohrwurm. You maybe know that when you have a song keep stuck in your hand, you keep singing it and you can't forget about it. That's what we in Germany call an Ohrwurm. And if you translate it to English, earworm sounds super disgusting. So if we use that pattern and compare imperative programming and declarative programming, or reactive programming better, we have also things which are kind of similar. So for example, if you're used to arrays at the first index, you want to get the first out of this array, and you see the method first, you kind of would have guessed what the method first would do. It's also similar if you say array spread and to array in RxJS. You already can understand what happened under the hood, even though you might not know how observables work and what RxJS is. So there are also operators in RxJS which are completely the same. So for example, filter and map. Everyone who is familiar with array first class functions, array and map and first, they're completely the same in RxJS. But as soon as you try to get some data and want to do it with RxJS, then it's becoming weird. Because usually you're just calling a function, right? You're calling a function, return, and get some data back. With RxJS, you need to subscribe. What's going on? Why do I need to subscribe? That doesn't make any kind of sense. And for a non-native RxJS speaker, this seems super unintuitive and doesn't seem to be very practical. So what we need to do to get into RxJS is practicing the reactive thinking. And to get there, I would suggest we're doing a lot of live coding. Even though live coding is probably the most difficult part for a speaker, so it's going to be amazing. Let's try it. The idea is what I want to do is implement something like that. So we have like a carousel or slider. It's having a timer under the hood, so it's directly navigating through the images. I can use the keyboard to go through the images and also use the mouse for swipe gestures. So that's what we are going to implement within the next 3 hours. Okay? Good. So let's go to some code. I prepared a little bit. Is the font size big enough? Yes? No? You know this thing of interaction with the speaker? It's very helpful for me. If you could... A little bit bigger. Thank you very much. Highly appreciated. So, okay, so I did some preparation. I will send around the source code so you can check it out afterwards. Also, there's the working solution, not this broken part. So for now, it's just this. So we have the image loaded already. It's a random image from Unsplash, so it might be that it looks a little bit weird. But for now, I can't do anything. What I prepared so far is having the touch start event. So what we are doing here, because we want to support touch devices and mouse devices, we are merging an array, an event of touch start and mouse down. And also we are getting the X position or the first click event out of it. What we then want to do is with this touch start, because this touch start for our swipe gesture is the initial starting point. From that on, we want to see in which direction he navigates and get the delta out of it. Therefore, we are using the touch start here and applying the switch map operator. If you want to understand the operators in detail I now refer to, check out the docs, come to me afterwards. I can elaborate on most of them. No, I'm serious. I can elaborate all of them, I think. And also, especially about switch map, there are several blog posts about in the internet how this operator is working. So, okay. So what we're doing with switch map, we are taking the event and passing it to, typing is super difficult, to our touch move observable. What's going on? So, okay, we're passing it to our touch move event. So let's check out what touch move is. Touch move is for now just a combination of the move event, the touch move event and the mouse move event, so that we can combine both, again, touch and mouse devices. Additionally, I add a custom operator to prevent event propagation, because otherwise my slideshow would have gone on as soon as I click the page. So what we now want to do is, first we want to calculate the delta from the point where the user moved the mouse to the last point where he released the mouse click. So for the first thing we do is we're using the observe on operator to, as a minor performance tweak, because we can use the animation frame scheduler here. Again, if you want to dig deeper into scheduler, because they're pretty much the most advanced concept in RxJS, check out some blog articles, or there are also several talks on YouTube about it, but it's a talk on its own. So I already mentioned that we want to calculate the distance till the user released the mouse. Therefore, we are using the take until operator, and because it could either be a mouse up event, which could be fired, or a touch end event. We are using the raise operator. It's very similar to promise raise. So it's just using the first value emitted by one of those two observables. So we are saying from event, And I have a native element here somewhere. So this is an Angular application if you want to check out how I did it, but it's not very much relying on Angular specific code, not too much at least. So we have the touch end, and it's lowercase, and we have the from event, native element, and mouse up. So with this take until, we now say, okay, we want to get all the move events until this event happens. Afterwards, we apply also a custom function. We want to dig deeper into that later because I won't code that live. Calculate delta. We're passing the event and the list of items we have. And one very important thing is because for the animation, we want to know which is the last point where the user actually released the mouse. Therefore, we now would get all the values in between, but take until is a trigger to complete the observable and unsubscribe afterwards. Therefore, we can use take last here with an index of 1, and therefore we would pass the last value emitted to our subscriber as soon as the observable completes. And hopefully, if I now use swipe inside our events observable here, and we add it here, because this is also one of the part I prepared. Within this tab is therefore handling side effects inside RxJS. Within this tab, I just calculate whether I want to actually perform the swipe if the certain threshold is met, because I could also imagine that there's just a decent swipe and I don't want to perform an animation already, and it performs the actual animation. So hopefully, if I did it correctly, the swipe should now work. And for sure it doesn't. I love live coding. Cannot read Cannot read property page X. Let's check that out. So what have I done? From event, take until, raise. This calculate data. Looks very good. So for lucky me, I prepared the solution. Not there. Cannot delta x, no. What's going on? Okay. So let me shortly refer to the solution. It's directly here, carousel component, and I intentionally make it a bit small so that you can't read it. I copy-paste stuff over. I'm very good at copy-pasting stuff. So hopefully, beautiful, right? That was easy. Okay, so we implemented within this 20 lines of code and a little bit of copy-pasting, complete carousel which is handling swipe and mouse gestures. So what we want to add now is adding left and right arrow keys. So as soon as I hit those keys, I want to navigate to the next page. Let me close that because nobody cares about them. And what we're actually doing here is using the from event operator again. And because keystrokes are actually not performed on a certain element, but on the document element, we say key down. And we are just, because key down is fired with every keystroke happens, we are just interested in those which are happening for the A key. Keyboard event, and we're saying event.code, yeah, equals to key A. I use A and D instead of left arrow and right arrow because this was also trigger my slide deck. So now I have all the events that happens on the A key. And we use that because we're not actually interested in the event itself, just that it triggers. We're using the map_to operator here, map_to, and I prepared a little helper, which is go to previous page. So as soon as we're saying, okay, hit key A is pressed, go to the next, the previous page, and this previous page constant is just, here it is, it's just one of the offset to trigger the animation. By emitting this value, the animation kicks in, and we go to the previous page. We do the same thing for the right arrow or the D key, and again using copy-paste because I'm super lazy for such stuff. And luckily I found a typo. I should have prepared constant for those. And if I didn't make any different typo, oh, come on. Oh, that's bad. Okay, let's make it a live debugging session. So if you want to debug with RxJS, use the tab operator and pass console log there. Like this. Best debugging tip I have for you. Let's use that one. And I'm quite sure I just did a stupid mistake again. What? Oh, I'm so stupid. Okay, I know what happened because I forgot to subscribe to those observables. Happens every time. So to actually subscribe to those observables, we're using our already prepared events observables. And because it's what we are actually doing is performing the same logic as for the swipe event. Therefore, we can just say, OK, merge all those events together into one observable. Left arrow and right arrow. Oh, stupid me. OK. Oh. Are you enjoying the talk? It's very professional, right? Are you kidding me? Document key down. Key down is right? It's playing tricks on me. Left arrow, right arrow, event. Oh. We're getting closer. Closer, not good enough. It's code key D. Event code key D. Should have worked. Code key D. Am I that stupid? Key D. It's the same, right? Sorry? Thank you very much. Do you want to do the rest of the talk? It's maybe getting more easy. Okay. So the easier parts are now done. So let's come to the difficult part, the timer. That's going to be amazing. So we're using the interval operator. Interval is quite similar to set interval, if you're already might familiar with. And we're passing an initial delay here and saying, because this is a little bit difficult, because we want this counter to be restarted as soon as one of those events happens. So as soon as the mouse is clicked, as soon as one of the keys is pressed. So what we do or want to do is applying the take until again to unsubscribe as soon as one of those events happen. And we're just passing our event observable here. Events. So one thing now, which comes in quite strange, because now take until subscribe to our events observable, and we are two lines below are also subscribing to that observable. Therefore, all those event listeners are registered multiple times. What we now want to do is within our key observable, our event observable, to apply the share operator. Share is the most common multicasting operators. Again, there are multiple talks and blog articles about multicasting in RxJS. And what just happens under the hood is that all the values are just put into a subject, and every subscriber gets the subject instance back. And therefore, we have just one single subscription instance on this event observable. So, but still, as soon as one of those events happen now, our interval is dead, and we don't get any value out of it. What we actually want to do is, as soon as it completes, because take until, besides unsubscribing from the source observable, also completes it, as soon as it completes, we want to apply the repeat when operator. And repeat when gets the source observable as instance in, and we're returning it back. So these two lines is just as soon as one of those events happens, resubscribe again to the observable. And basically, as soon we can now just apply the map2 operator again and use go to next page, not go to previous page, which doesn't make any sense. And if we merge that now with our events observable here down below, merge events and timer, we should be able to go through the pages. One little helper I prepared, because you might notice if I go to the last page, let me go to the previous page, wait for 5 seconds, it should now go to the next page, and now it would stop. Because there's no next page, I just added three images to this slideshow, so it would just stop. And for an automatic timer at least, I would expect that it goes to the first page. Therefore, I prepared a little helper method, which do something like, I think it's something like this, animate back to first slide. Amazing. So now, when I go to the last page, it beautifully animates back to the first page. Thank you. And that's it, what I prepared for the live coding. So within this, let me see. We start at line 39, and the last is, okay, within 100 lines of code, I was slightly exaggerating here. Within 100 lines of code, we implemented a quite complex feature. And imagine implementing something like this in an imperative manner. You would go crazy, I promise you. Synchronizing all those different events in a way, something like this, is in imperative programming one of the most challenging things we could do. So, because in the live coding session I was slightly fast, so let's do a quick summary of what we just did. So we started with our touch start event, where we merged the touch start and mouse down event, just to have a combined event for both of those events as a starting point for our swipe gesture. From there on, we move. Is the code readable from far behind? Yeah? No? I don't. This reaction is amazing. So if it's not readable, check out the source code afterwards. So we take this touch start event, and as soon as one of the users touched the first time, or mouse down the first time, we map this observable and pass this initial event to our touch move observable. And this touch move observable consists out of a combination of touch move and mouse move, again, to combine those two different user interfaces. And again, this event propagation is just for my slide deck, so usually you wouldn't need that. So we take that value and use the observe on operator to schedule the values over the animation frame schedule. This is just a minor performance improvement, that the animation is a little bit more flawlessly. And this is very important because we want our inner observable to end as soon as the user release the mouse or stop touching the device. And therefore, we combine those events. We could also, instead of race, could have used merge here, but for semantic reason, race makes a little bit more sense. And afterwards, we take those values and calculate the data from the delta from the starting point to the last point where the user actually released the device. And at the very end, we apply take last, because to our subscriber, we just want to pass the value where the user released the touch device. Again, we are using merge to merge all our different events together. And for our subscriber, we later on merge with the timer event. we handle the animation. This is the logic for handling the animation and applying the threshold so that if the user just swipes for 10 pixels or something like that, the animation isn't triggered with that. So additionally, anytime we're working with observables, we should consider if we need to unsubscribe from it, because interval is actually a long-living observable, so it keeps emitting even though there's no one interested in. We need to make sure to unsubscribe. In Angular application, it's quite common to have this take until destroy pattern, which is just a subject emitting as soon as the component is destroyed. And you might notice this because I also forgot it in my slides, in my live demo. You need to subscribe to observables to trigger it, otherwise nothing happens. And it's really a pity if that happens in a live coding session. Whew. And that's what our swipe feature is, or that's how we implemented the swipe feature. Let's come to the keyboard navigation. So we used from event for the key down and applied for sure key A, which is super obviously. And every time this event triggers, we map the value instead of the event, which we are not really interested in, or the value of the event, we map it to the value to trigger our animation. And we're doing the same thing, completely the same thing for the go to the next page animation. Here is the calculation, how I calculated the threshold, because I just want to say, okay, go to the previous page or go to the next page, and I'll just edit an offset of 1. So it's not really super sophisticated. Again, we are merging it into our events observable because they are all events. And this is everything we need to do because we already subscribed to our events, is it called? Events observable. So this, as soon as it's emit a value, triggers the subscription logic, and we're good to go with that. Yeah, that's just what I said. So coming to the timer. The timer is initiated with the interval operator, which under the hood just uses set interval. And we're using the take until again. So as soon as one of those events emitting a notification, we are unsubscribing from it. And by applying the repeat when operator, we immediately, as soon as this event is emitted, we again subscribe to it. I could also combine those two operators to a custom operator, something like repeat when one of those observable emits. But for making you better understand how those two works, I keep it as is. Afterwards, we would be good to go by just applying the map to and go to the next page. But because I wanted it to work in a way that it goes back to the first slide, I added this tab operator, which is again just for side effects here. So I'm just saying, okay, go to the next page instead. And we are merging this timer observable into together with our events observable. And as soon as one of those emits a value, we trigger our animation to the next or the slide before. And that's it. Amazing, right? So now you know how you can practice RxJS. You can check out this source code. You can check out other source code. You can practice it by your own. And to make you a little bit more interested in what's coming next and what you can looking forward to, I want to tell about what we are planning to do with the next version of RxJS, which is currently in the alpha phase. So if you want to check it out, you can just use npm install RxJS at next or something like that and give us feedback. This is really important for us to reduce breaking changes, and also it's just good for us to know that we don't break anyone and people hopefully like it. So we prepared two things which are good for you and one thing which is good for us. So let's start with the one which is good for us, because what we want to do with RxJS 7 is we want to enable a good transition to RxJS 8, because for RxJS 8, we are expecting to reduce the bundle size of RxJS and improve the performance, difficult word. So by improving the performance and doing so, we could expect that without such an intermediate step in between, we would break more people. And therefore, to reduce those and make the migration more seamlessly, we make some of the changes now with RxJS 7 now already. And for the next version with RxJS, you can look forward to a smaller bundle size and a better performance. So what are you getting now with RxJS 7, which is currently in the alpha phase? I just said that. You're first getting improved typings as long as you're using TypeScript. And you get an animation frame observable. And I want to elaborate on both of them more in detail. So I think with RxJS 6.4 or something like that, we introduced a feature that if you're using switch map with a conditional, so that you're saying, okay, if something is there, return that observable, otherwise return another observable, and those two observable were from a different type, then with RxJS 6.4, at least for switch map, we wasn't able to estimate which type it was. But actually TypeScript is able to infer this snippet to saying, okay, it's either an observable of string or an observable of number. And with 6.4, I think it was, we introduced that for switch map. With RxJS 7, we want to introduce it for all operators, taking an observable generator function. So before, it was just inferring to, and it's an observable of object, which is pretty much not really helpful. And with RxJS 7, we say, okay, it's a string or whatever it is, actually. So we did something similar for the concat operator. Concat, for those of you who don't know it, might know the array concat because it's working the same way. So if you're passing multiple arguments, then we couldn't estimate, at least if they were from a different type, what the result of it was. But actually, TypeScript is capable to handle those scenarios by inferring it to a union type. And with RxJS 7, we fixed that properly. Also some similar, but a little bit edge casey. We did something for the reduce operator. So with reduce, you might already know array reduce. If you cast the accumulator function, the accumulator object, sorry, to a certain value, then we inferred that type. So it's also applying to scans, reduce and scan, those two operators. If you're passing a certain value to a certain object to the accumulator value, then you get out an observable of that type. With RxJS 7, you get the proper type of it. Because if you're returning a string plus something, it's always a string, right? And the last thing, which is not super much about typing, but still cool, is you can now pass the Boolean constructor function to the filter operator. By doing so, all the falsy values would be filtered, like 0, empty object, I think, empty string, those stuff. And before RxJS 7, it was referred or inferred to observable of unknown, which is also super weird, and this was very edge casey to get to know that. And with RxJS 7, it's probably inferred again. So this is the stuff we did for the improved typings. We also added an animation frame observable. The animation frame observable emits values with the elapsed milliseconds in between each animation frame. And you can use that to implement beautiful and performant animations with RxJS. So I prepared some stuff, and this is also the example we're going to add to the documentation with the next version. So you can implement, for example, a tween operator, which calculates the duration from a starting point to an end point. And I'd add some boilerplate code to just create a diff on the screen. And if I apply that operator to the diff, and transform it, we would get a result looking like this. Do you see it? It's moving. I want to do it again. Thank you. Wasn't that beautiful? So let's do a quick summary. Thank you. Let's do a quick summary. So the best way to get into RxJS is definitely by practicing. You won't understand RxJS properly just from checking out the source code or the documentation. That doesn't make sense if you can't establish a reactive mindset. And you won't establish such a mindset just by checking out the docs. That won't help you. And you can achieve that by, for example, redoing the same. You can just go at home and implement a carousel. It was a little bit of fun, if the implementation worked at least, and you can refer to my source code later on. Also a very cool scenario is implementing drag and drop features with RxJS, because RxJS is very powerful for all asynchronous and event-oriented aggregations, and drag and drop is pretty similar to the carousel because you're dragging an element to a different position. It's very similar. Also one of the, I think it's the RxJS 101, is implementing a type ahead search, so that you're having an input box and every search element, every keystroke is passed to an API and you get back some search results. This is really like the most common examples you will find on the internet. You can implement such use cases as well to just establish this mindset. And I promise you, with every of those examples, you will understand RxJS a little bit more. And also one of the very common use cases, long polling, where you say, okay, every n seconds hit an API endpoint and get some results back. So the slides are at this link, rxjs-practice-makes-perfect.dev. And the GitHub repository is there as well. I will send the slides around at Twitter in 10 minutes, probably. So you can make a photo, but you can also just go to Twitter. And thank you very much for being such a nice audience. I really appreciate being here.